Dear reader, welcome to a story filled with mystery, adventure, and the unexpected. In this tale, we follow Alex, a curious young soul, who stumbles upon a hidden door in an old attic. A door that holds secrets buried deep within the walls of a seemingly ordinary house. What begins as a simple discovery soon leads Alex down a path of uncovering forgotten histories, facing parallel worlds, and confronting the shadows of the past. I invite you to join Alex and their best friend Emma as they explore the unknown, uncover dark family secrets, and challenge forces far beyond their comprehension. Now, let's step into the attic. The door awaits. Chapter 1. The house on Maple Street. It was a cold, dreary afternoon when Alex first stepped inside the house on Maple Street. The moving truck had left hours ago, its wheels crunching against the gravel driveway as it disappeared down the road. The house, an old Victorian with weathered shingles and ivy crawling up its sides, stood like an ancient sentinel, watching over a quiet, forgotten corner of town. Alex had never been one for nostalgia, but there was something oddly unsettling about the place. It wasn't the size of the house or even its age. It was the way the house seemed to hold its breath, as though waiting for something or someone to awaken it. "Welcome to your new home," Mom said, a tired but hopeful smile on her face. She stepped back, allowing Alex to enter the front hallway first. The house had been in the family for years, passed down from one generation to the next. It wasn't much, at least not by today's standards, but it was home, or at least, it was supposed to be. The furniture, old and covered with dust, had been hastily thrown into the rooms by the movers. Boxes stacked high, some already cracked open with their contents spilling out, were scattered throughout the house like misplaced memories. The air felt thick, almost as if the house had been holding its secrets for too long, waiting for the right person to uncover them. "Do you want to pick your room?" Mom asked, clearly exhausted from the move. She didn't wait for an answer before she disappeared into the kitchen, leaving Alex to roam through the empty halls. Alex glanced around, eyes drawn to the old staircase that wound upward into darkness. At the top, the door to the attic beckoned, its edges outlined in shadow. Alex had always been curious about attics, places where things were forgotten, where time seemed to stand still. And something about this particular attic called to Alex in a way that was hard to explain. But that was just the beginning. After exploring the first floor and unpacking a few things in the room that was to be Alex's new sanctuary, curiosity led them back to the staircase. The attic door was tucked away at the far end of the hallway, hidden almost as if the house was trying to keep it a secret. It was an old door, its wood darkened with age, with an antique brass handle that looked far too ornate for a place like this. The lock, strangely enough, appeared to have no keyhole. Alex's fingers hovered over the handle. The door seemed almost out of place. The house was full of relics from the past, but this door, in particular, felt different. It stood as a reminder of something that had been sealed away long ago, a mystery left untouched. "Maybe it's locked," Alex muttered to themselves, but that only deepened the intrigue. Pushing the thought aside, Alex explored the rest of the house, but the door stayed in the back of their mind. It lingered there like a whisper, calling them back to it. That night, after the last of the boxes had been unpacked and the house fell into an eerie silence, Alex couldn't sleep. The idea of the attic and the door gnawed at them, turning in their mind like a puzzle begging to be solved. The next morning, with the light streaming through the windows and illuminating the dust particles floating in the air, Alex stood in front of the door again. This time, The door was no longer just a curiosity. It felt significant, as though it had a purpose beyond simply being part of an old house. Something deep inside Alex told them that the hidden door wasn't just a relic of the past. It was a key to something much bigger, something that had been waiting, locked away in the dark, for someone to discover. With a deep breath, Alex turned the handle. The door didn't budge. It was locked in a way that seemed almost too deliberate. There was no keyhole, no visible way to open it, and yet Alex could feel that it wasn't an ordinary lock. There was something strange about it, something that didn't fit with the rest of the house. Determined, Alex began searching around the attic, looking for anything that might give them a clue about the door's secret. Old furniture covered in sheets, forgotten boxes of childhood memories, and strange trinkets seemed to be scattered across the room. There was a scent in the air too. Dust, yes, but something more, something faintly metallic. It was as though the attic was holding its breath, just like the rest of the house. Hours passed as Alex sifted through the old papers, books, and odd objects, but nothing seemed to unlock the mystery of the door. And just as Alex was about to give up, their hand brushed against something cold. A small, silver key had fallen out from between two old books, its intricate design matching the age of the house perfectly. It seemed impossible, but there it was, lying hidden in the attic all along. Alex turned it over in their hand, feeling its weight. There was no doubt in their mind now. This was the key to the door. The excitement surged within them, and they couldn't wait to see what lay behind it. What had been locked away in this house for so long? But as Alex inserted the key into the door's lock, they couldn't shake the feeling that this was no ordinary discovery. Whatever lay behind this door wasn't meant to be found, at least not by someone like them. With a quiet click, the lock turned. The door creaked open, and beyond it, an entirely different world. Chapter 2. Secrets in the shadows. The door creaked as it opened, its ancient hinges groaning in protest, as if the house itself were reluctant to give up its secrets. Alex stood there for a moment, heart racing, staring into the darkness beyond the threshold. A thin sliver of light from the hallway cast just enough of a glow to reveal the edge of the room, but the space beyond the door was shrouded in thick shadow, as though it were hiding from the world. Alex hesitated. They had only planned to open the door to see if there was something behind it, some forgotten piece of the house's history, perhaps an old storage room full of dust and cobwebs. But now that the door was open, the silence and the darkness seemed to weigh heavier than they expected, almost suffocating. Every instinct in Alex's body told them to turn back, to close the door and pretend they had never seen it. But curiosity, that insatiable force, urged them forward. Stepping inside, Alex's shoes barely made a sound against the wooden floor, which was smooth and worn down in places, indicating it had not been disturbed in years. The air was thick with dust, but there was something else mixed in, an odd scent, faint but unmistakable, like old leather and something metallic. Alex's breath caught in their throat as they glanced around the room, taking in the odd assortment of furniture, boxes, and relics. It wasn't just a storage space. No, this room felt like it had been carefully curated, like everything in it had a purpose, even if that purpose was now lost to time. The first thing Alex noticed was a large, oval mirror on the far wall. Unlike the rest of the room, which seemed aged and worn, the mirror looked strangely new. The frame was made of dark, polished wood, carved with intricate symbols that Alex didn't recognize. The glass was flawless, reflecting the dim light from the hallway in such a way that it seemed almost alive. Alex stepped closer, transfixed by the strange beauty of the mirror, when something caught their eye. There, in the reflection, was the faint outline of a door. But this wasn't the attic door that Alex had just opened. This was a door inside the mirror, a doorway that looked exactly like the one in the real world, but it was slightly different. It seemed to shimmer, faintly glowing with a soft light. Alex blinked, feeling a chill run down their spine. Was this some kind of illusion? A trick of the light? "Alex, are you in there?" A voice called from the hallway, pulling Alex away from the mirror. It was Emma, Alex's best friend. She had been helping with the unpacking downstairs, and it seemed that the excitement of exploring the attic had already worn off for her. Alex quickly stepped back from the mirror, swallowing the uneasy feeling that had settled in their chest. "Yeah, just checking out the attic. There's this weird door in here. Is it locked?" Emma's voice was filled with curiosity, but also a touch of caution. "Yeah, but I found a key. It opened the door." Alex hesitated, glancing back at the mirror. "There's something strange about this room though, Emma. I don't know how to explain it. It's like there's more here than meets the eye." Emma stepped into the attic, her face lighting up with the same curiosity that Alex had felt when they first discovered the hidden door. Her eyes immediately landed on the mirror, and she walked toward it without a word. "Do you see that?" Alex asked, pointing at the mirror's reflection of the door. Emma frowned, standing beside Alex and peering into the glass. She stared at the shimmering outline of the door for a long moment, then turned to Alex. "I don't see anything. There's nothing there, just the reflection of the room." "What?" "No, look closely. It's like there's a doorway in the mirror, and it's glowing. I swear it wasn't there before." Alex's voice was filled with growing unease. Emma raised an eyebrow, clearly skeptical. "Alex, are you sure you're not just imagining it? I mean, you've been unpacking all day, and you've had a lot of stress with the move. Maybe it's just the light playing tricks on you." "I don't think so," Alex said, shaking their head. "This feels different. I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like there's something more." Emma stepped closer to the mirror, pressing her hand against the cool surface of the glass. "I don't feel anything, but I'll take your word for it." She turned to face Alex, trying to lighten the mood. "You're acting like you've uncovered a secret treasure. What do you think? A hidden chamber full of riches?" Alex managed a small smile, but couldn't shake the feeling that there was something else to the mirror. Something far darker. "Maybe," they said, trying to sound more confident than they felt. "But I don't think it's gold we're dealing with." Emma looked back at the mirror, her expression still doubtful, but there was a flicker of intrigue in her eyes. "Well, maybe we should take a closer look. What's the worst that could happen?" "I don't know," Alex muttered under their breath. They reached out again, this time with a sense of purpose. "I think we need to figure out what this is." Just as Alex's fingers brushed the mirror, a sudden gust of wind seemed to stir the air around them. The attic felt colder, and the shadows seemed to deepen. Emma's eyes widened. "Alex, did you feel that?" Before Alex could answer, the reflection in the mirror shifted. The shimmering door suddenly seemed to open, the soft glow turning into a pulsating light that almost seemed to beckon. Alex froze, heart pounding in their chest. The room around them felt wrong. The air thickened, and a low hum began to fill the space, growing louder with every passing second. "What's happening?" Emma asked, her voice trembling. She stepped back from the mirror, but Alex remained rooted to the spot, staring into the glowing doorway in the reflection. The reflection of the room began to warp, distorting the familiar attic into something foreign, like a version of the house twisted by some dark force. Without thinking, Alex reached out and touched the mirror. The moment their fingers made contact with the glass, a sharp, icy jolt ran up their arm. The world around them seemed to blur, and before they knew it, Alex was falling forward, toward the mirror, as if being pulled by an invisible force. "Alex, no!" Emma screamed, reaching out to grab Alex's arm, but it was too late. Alex felt the mirror's surface pull them in, dragging them through the glass like they were being swallowed by the world beyond. For a brief moment, everything went black. When Alex opened their eyes, they were no longer in the attic. The world around them was different. The room they stood in felt familiar, but everything was off, as though it had been distorted. The walls were lined with old, decaying bookshelves, and the air was thick with dust. The window on the far wall looked out over a desolate landscape, an empty, grey sky that stretched to the horizon. Alex took a hesitant step forward. The room seemed unchanged, but it felt wrong. The smell in the air was metallic, sharp, and cold. They could hear the distant sound of wind howling, but when they turned to face Emma, she was nowhere to be seen. Panic rose in Alex's chest. "Emma!" they called out, but their voice sounded muffled, as though something was pressing against their ears. The only response was the eerie, oppressive silence. Alex's pulse quickened as they turned in a slow circle, trying to make sense of what was happening. But the truth was undeniable. They weren't in the attic anymore. They had crossed into something else. Something far darker. Chapter 3. The mirror's secret. The cold air hit Alex like a slap to the face. They stumbled forward, taking a few unsteady steps, their eyes darting around the strange room they found themselves in. Everything felt distorted. The walls were lined with old, rotting bookshelves, their surfaces covered in dust and cobwebs. The faint smell of mold mixed with the metallic tang that had filled the air moments before. The floor beneath Alex's feet was creaky, like something ancient that had been left untouched for decades. "Emma!" Alex's voice cracked in the stillness. Their heart pounded in their chest, and their breath came out in short, panicked gasps. There was no answer. The strange room was silent. The wind howled somewhere in the distance, but the noise felt disconnected, as if it came from another world entirely. Alex looked toward the window, hoping to see something familiar, but all they saw was a grey, lifeless sky that seemed to stretch endlessly toward a barren horizon. There were no trees, no hills, nothing. It was as though the world had been drained of life. "Emma!" Alex called again, louder this time, but the words seemed to be swallowed by the oppressive silence. They clenched their fists, forcing themselves to focus, to make sense of the situation. How had they ended up here? What had happened to the attic? The mirror? Was this some kind of dream? No, everything felt too real for that. The floor creaked beneath Alex's feet as they took another step forward. They had to find Emma. She had to be here somewhere. The thought of being trapped in this place alone made their skin crawl. The bookshelves were lined with hundreds of old tomes, ancient, leather-bound volumes that seemed to whisper with the weight of forgotten knowledge. The titles were indecipherable, written in languages that Alex didn't recognize. Some of the books were cracked open, their pages yellowed with age. But what drew Alex's attention wasn't the books themselves. It was the strange symbols that seemed to adorn every surface of the room. They were etched into the wood of the shelves, carved into the corners of the walls, and even traced across the floorboards in a meticulous pattern. Alex crouched down, running a hand over the floorboards. The symbols felt warm to the touch, pulsing gently under their fingers. As they traced one of the symbols, the air around them seemed to shift. For a split second, Alex could have sworn they saw something move, a shadow perhaps, but when they looked up, the room was still. Panic rose in their chest again, but Alex forced themselves to breathe, to think. There had to be some way out of this place, some way to find Emma and return to the attic. But the longer they stood there, the more it seemed like the room itself was shifting, like the very air around them was alive, twisting with hidden forces. A sudden movement caught Alex's eye, and they turned toward it. Across the room, on the far wall, there was a door. At first, Alex had missed it, lost in the chaos of their thoughts. But now it stood there, almost inviting them, as though it had always been waiting for them to notice. The door was ancient, much like the rest of the room, with a dark wooden frame and intricate carvings that seemed to match the symbols on the shelves and floor. Without thinking, Alex made their way toward the door. As they walked closer, they noticed that the door was slightly ajar, a faint light spilling through the crack. It was unlike the dim, grey light that filled the rest of the room. This light seemed to have a life of its own, glowing with an eerie, unnatural brightness. Taking a deep breath, Alex pushed the door open. The room beyond was even stranger than the one they had just left. It was vast, stretching far beyond the confines of the house. At least, that's how it felt. The walls were lined with mirrors, some small, others tall and imposing, each reflecting a slightly different version of reality. The air was thick with the same metallic scent, but now there was a hum that filled the space, a low, resonating sound that seemed to come from the mirrors themselves. The room felt like it was alive, a place where time and space had no meaning. And then Alex saw her. Emma stood in the center of the room, her back turned toward them, her head tilted slightly to the side as if she were listening to something. She seemed different, not like the Emma Alex knew. There was a distance in her posture, a coldness to her presence, as if she were lost in some kind of trance. "Emma!" Alex shouted, rushing toward her. Emma's head snapped around, her eyes wide and unfocused, her face pale. For a moment, she didn't seem to recognize Alex. Her lips parted, but she didn't speak. She was breathing heavily, as though she had been running, or perhaps fleeing from something terrifying. "Emma, what's going on?" Alex asked, stepping closer. But Emma didn't respond. Instead, her gaze drifted past Alex, focusing on the mirrors around them. Alex followed her gaze, and what they saw made their blood run cold. The mirrors were not simply reflecting the room. They were showing something else, something twisted. In one of the mirrors, Alex saw themselves standing in the doorway, but their reflection was different. The Alex in the mirror had eyes that glowed faintly, and their skin looked pale, almost sickly. The reflection of the room was distorted, like a nightmare version of the space they were in. In another mirror, Emma's reflection was even more disturbing. She was smiling in a way that Alex had never seen before, a wide, eerie grin that didn't reach her eyes. And behind her, in the reflection, stood a shadowy figure, tall and dark, its features hidden in the darkness. It was watching Emma, waiting. "Emma, look out!" Alex cried, rushing toward her. But when they reached her, Emma was no longer standing still. She was moving, slowly, almost mechanically, toward one of the mirrors. "Emma, stop!" Alex shouted, grabbing her arm, but Emma jerked away. Her eyes locked on the mirror with an intensity that terrified Alex. Her lips moved, but she wasn't speaking to Alex. She was speaking to someone, or something, behind the mirror. The air around them grew thick, and Alex felt the world begin to shift again. The mirrors seemed to pull at them, their reflections twisting into impossible shapes, showing fleeting glimpses of a world that wasn't their own. A world full of shadows and strange creatures, a world where nothing was as it seemed. "Emma!" Alex shouted again, desperately trying to pull her back from the mirror, but Emma was already too far gone. Her hand reached out toward the reflection, as though she could step through the glass and into the other world on the other side. In a final, desperate attempt, Alex grabbed Emma's arm and yanked her away from the mirror. But it was too late. The moment their hands touched, there was a sharp, deafening crack, a sound that reverberated through the room, shaking the very foundation of the house. The mirrors flickered, their reflections distorting even further, and in the blink of an eye, everything went black.